Greg Tucker's hand trembled as he traced the intricate geometric patterns etched into the cave wall. What he had initially dismissed as primitive art was about to redefine humanity's place in the universe. The 35-year-old archaeologist from the University of Sydney had spent weeks in this remote Australian outback site, painstakingly documenting what he believed to be an unknown form of Aboriginal art. The walls were covered in complex symbols and lines, unlike anything he'd encountered in his career. As Greg's research team attempted to decipher the markings, their equipment began to hum and vibrate. Suddenly, a blinding light erupted from the cave walls, engulfing the stunned researchers. The ground beneath their feet trembled as an otherworldly energy pulsed through the ancient stone. Unbeknownst to Greg and his team, they had just activated a dormant alien beacon hidden within the cave system. The signal raced across the vast expanse of space, carrying with it a message that would forever change the course of human history. Days later, as Greg was presenting his findings to colleagues at the university, news broke of an unidentified object entering Earth's orbit. Global panic ensued as military forces worldwide mobilized, preparing for the unthinkable: first contact with an alien civilization. The object was soon revealed to be a scout ship belonging to the Ocampa, a technologically advanced race from a distant star system. Their commander, Xander, transmitted a message to Earth's governments, explaining the true nature of Greg's discovery. The cave paintings were not art at all, but an ancient form of computational code left behind by an extinct species known as the precursors. This code, when fully activated, held the power to reshape reality on a cosmic scale. The Ocampa, who had searched for precursor artifacts for millennia, were astonished to find such a significant discovery on what they considered a primitive world. Xander's message concluded with a chilling ultimatum: Earth must surrender the cave site and all related research to Ocampa control, or face dire consequences. The alien commander's words sent shockwaves through the corridors of power across the globe. As the world teetered on the brink of interstellar conflict, Greg found himself thrust into the center of the crisis. Recognized as the leading expert on the cave paintings, he was summoned to a high-security government facility to brief world leaders on the situation. Inside a windowless room, surrounded by stern-faced military personnel and anxious politicians, Greg explained everything he knew about the cave system and its mysterious markings. As he spoke, the gravity of the situation became clear. Humanity's fate now hinged on their ability to understand and potentially harness the power hidden within the ancient code. The meeting was interrupted by urgent news. Other alien factions had caught wind of the discovery and were now setting their sights on Earth. The planet's newfound cosmic significance had turned it into a potential battleground for advanced civilizations, seeking to control the precursor technology. As the world leaders argued about the best course of action, Greg was approached by a stern-looking general. The archaeologist was tasked with leading a top-secret international team to decipher the code before it was too late. The fate of humanity now rested on Greg's shoulders. Outside the facility, global military forces prepared for a potential alien invasion. Fighter jets patrolled the skies, naval fleets positioned themselves strategically, and ground troops stood ready for deployment. Greg looked out at the night sky, knowing that somewhere up there, alien ships were gathering. He clenched his fists, determination coursing through his veins. Humanity may be outgunned and outmatched technologically, but they had one advantage. The code was on their planet, and they would fight with everything they had to unlock its secrets before it fell into the wrong hands. The race against time had begun, and the entire universe was watching. Greg's fingers flew across the holographic keyboard, his eyes darting between multiple screens, displaying complex equations and ancient symbols. The research facility, nestled in the heart of the Australian outback, hummed with activity as scientists from around the world worked feverishly to unlock the secrets of the precursor code. Dr. Henry Way leaned over Greg's shoulder, his brow furrowed in concentration. The quantum matrices are aligning, but there's still something missing, he muttered, adjusting his glasses. Dr. Klaus Schmidt paced behind them, his thick German accent punctuating the air. "We must hurry. The Ocampa grow impatient, and who knows what other threats loom beyond our atmosphere." Greg nodded, his mind racing. The weight of humanity's fate pressed down on him, but he pushed aside the anxiety, focusing on the task at hand. "There's a pattern here," he said, pointing to a series of interlocking geometric shapes on the main screen. "It's similar to the cave paintings, but more fluid." As the team worked, the facility's security systems maintained a constant vigil. Outside, camouflage sensors scanned the skies for any sign of alien activity, while armed guards patrolled the perimeter. The once quiet Australian landscape now bristled with hidden defenses, a testament to the global crisis unfolding. Thousands of miles away, in a fortified bunker beneath the Pentagon, General Marcus Hawthorne stood before a wall of monitors, each displaying real-time data from around the world. Military personnel scurried about, relaying information and coordinating defense efforts. "Status report," Hawthorne barked, his unwavering focus fixed on the central screen showing the Ocampa scout ship in Earth's orbit. A young lieutenant stepped forward. "Sir, we've successfully deployed the new satellite network. If Dr. Tucker's team can crack the code, we'll be ready to broadcast globally." Hawthorne nodded grimly. "And our ground forces?" "On high alert, sir. Naval fleets are in position, and our advanced fighter squadrons are running continuous patrols." The general's reply was cut short by a sudden commotion. Alarms blared as a technician shouted, "Sir, long-range sensors have detected a massive energy signature approaching the solar system." Hawthorne's eyes widened. "The Vril!" he breathed, realizing the situation had just become exponentially more complicated. Back in Australia, Greg and his team remained oblivious to the approaching threat. Their breakthrough came in the early hours of the morning as the first rays of sunlight crept over the horizon. "I've got it!" Greg exclaimed, his exhaustion momentarily forgotten. "The code isn't just about manipulating fundamental forces. It's a key to rewriting the fabric of reality itself." Dr. Wei leaned in, his eyes widening as he processed the implications. "Incredible! With this level of control over gravity and electromagnetism, one could theoretically alter the very laws of physics within a localized area." Dr. Schmidt nodded excitedly. "Yeah, and look here." He pointed to a complex string of symbols. "This must be the fail-safe mechanism you theorized." As the team delved deeper into the fail-safe, the ground beneath their feet began to tremble. Alarms blared throughout the facility, and security personnel rushed to secure the area. Greg's heart raced as he realized they had inadvertently activated a portion of the code. Outside the reinforced windows, he watched in awe as rocks began to float, defying gravity. Electrical equipment sparked and sputtered, affected by the localized electromagnetic disturbances. "We need to stabilize it!" Dr. Wei shouted over the chaos, his fingers dancing across his console. "If we don't contain this, who knows what damage it could cause?" As the team worked frantically to control the unleashed forces, a secure communication channel crackled to life. General Hawthorne's grave voice filled the room. "Dr. Tucker, we're out of time. The Ocampa have issued an ultimatum, 48 hours to surrender the code, or they'll attack. And that's not the worst of it. We've detected a massive alien fleet approaching. The Vril. They'll reach Earth in less than 3 days." Greg's blood ran cold. He looked at his team, seeing the fear and willpower mirrored in their eyes. "General," he replied, his voice steady despite the turmoil in his gut, "we've made a breakthrough. We've partially activated the code and discovered a fail-safe mechanism. We think it might be able to neutralize alien technology." Hawthorne's response was immediate. "That's the best news I've heard all day. Can you weaponize it?" Greg hesitated, glancing at his colleagues. Dr. Schmidt nodded encouragingly. "Theoretically, yes," Greg answered, "but we need more time to fully understand and control it, and we'll need a way to broadcast its effects globally." "You'll have whatever resources you need," Hawthorne assured him. "I'm coordinating with space agencies now to modify our satellite network. Just tell us what you need." As the communication ended, Greg turned to his team. The gravity of the situation hung heavy in the air, but there was no time for doubt or fear. They had work to do. All right, Greg said, his voice firm and focused. Henry, I need you to model the quantum interactions when we scale this up. Klaus, work on translating the fail-safe mechanism into a form we can broadcast. I'll coordinate with the military and start developing a deployment strategy. As the team sprang into action, Greg allowed himself a moment to gaze out the window at the Australian sky. Somewhere up there, two alien forces were converging on Earth, each with the power to annihilate humanity. Their only hope lay in the ancient code they had barely begun to understand. Greg took a deep breath, centering himself. The code pulsed on the screens behind him, its secrets slowly unraveling. In the distance, he could hear the roar of fighter jets on patrol, a reminder of the precarious balance they were trying to maintain. With renewed focus, Greg turned back to his work. The race against time had entered its final, crucial phase, and the fate of Earth hung in the balance. Balance. The sudden blare of alarms jolted Greg from his thoughts. Red warning lights flashed throughout the facility as a voice crackled over the intercom. Attention all personnel. Vril Warfleet detected entering the solar system. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. Greg's heart raced as he turned to his team. We're out of time. We need to implement the failsafe now. Dr. Wei's fingers flew across his keyboard. The quantum matrices are aligning, but we're still missing a critical component. Dr. Schmidt interjected, the broadcast system isn't ready. We can't scale it up yet. As the team worked feverishly, the ground shook with the distant rumble of sonic booms. Fighter jets screamed overhead, their engines pushing to maximum thrust as they climbed to meet the incoming threat. General Hawthorne's face appeared on the main screen, his expression grave. Dr. Tucker, the Vril are here ahead of schedule. The Ocampa ultimatum expires in less than an hour. We need options now. Greg ran his hand through his hair, mind racing. General, we've partially activated the failsafe. We can disrupt advanced technology within a 10-kilometer radius of the facility. It's not much, but it's a start. Hawthorne nodded, his teeth clenched. It'll have to do. I'm initiating contact with the Ocampa. We need all the help we can get. The screen split, revealing the stern face of Xander, the Ocampa commander. His silver skin gleamed under the harsh lights of his ship's bridge. General Hawthorne, Xander's voice was cool and measured. I see the Vril have forced your hand. Are you prepared to surrender the precursor artifact? Hawthorne stood tall, his voice unwavering. Commander Xander, I propose an alliance. The Vril threaten us both. Together we stand a chance of repelling them and safeguarding the artifact. Xander's eyes narrowed, considering the proposal. After a tense moment, he nodded. Agreed. But know this, humans. Once the Vril are defeated, we will revisit our original terms. As the alliance was forged, chaos erupted in orbit. The Vril fleet, a mass of sleek obsidian ships, swarmed Earth's defensive lines. Energy weapons flared across the void of space, lighting up the planet's night side like a violent aurora. In the Australian outback, Greg and his team felt the distant tremors of orbital bombardment. The facility's reinforced walls groaned under the strain as the battle raged above. We've got it! Dr. Wei shouted suddenly. On the main screen, a complex web of equations pulsed with otherworldly energy. The failsafe is online. Greg rushed to the console, quickly assessing the data. Activate it, now! With a few keystrokes, Dr. Wei initiated the sequence. The air around them seemed to ripple, like heat waves on a summer day. Outside, the floating rocks crashed to the ground as gravity reasserted itself. It's working! Dr. Schmidt exclaimed, pointing to a live feed from orbit. Vril ships closest to Earth began to list and drift, their advanced systems disrupted by the failsafe's influence. But the victory was short-lived. Alarms blared once more as a security officer burst into the room. Sir, we've detected a Vril landing party near the facility perimeter. Greg's blood ran cold. He turned to the main screen, where General Hawthorne was already barking orders. I'm dispatching Captain Reynolds and his team to your location. Hold that position at all costs, Dr. Tucker. The fate of humanity depends on it. As Hawthorne's image winked out, Greg felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. He looked at his team, seeing purpose mixed with fear in their eyes. "Henry, Klaus," he said, his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through his veins. "We need to expand the failsafe's range. If we can broadcast it globally, we might have a chance." They nodded, immediately diving back into their work. Greg turned to the security officer. "How long until the Vril reach us?" 10 minutes, maybe less," the man replied, his hand resting on his sidearm. Greg nodded, steeling himself for what was to come. He returned to his station, fingers dancing across the holographic interface as he delved deeper into the precursor code. As he worked, the sounds of battle grew closer. The staccato of gunfire echoed across the outback, punctuated by the alien whine of Vril energy weapons. The facility shook as explosions rocked the outer defenses. Suddenly, Greg's eyes widened as he noticed a pattern in the code he'd never seen before. "Wait a second," he muttered, enhancing the section on his screen. "This isn't just about disrupting technology. There's something more here." Dr. Wei looked up from his work. "What do you mean?" "The code," Greg said, his voice filled with awe. "It's not just a weapon or a tool. It's a key to unlocking human potential." Before he could elaborate, the doors burst open. Captain Jack Reynolds strode in, his combat armor scorched and dented. "Dr. Tucker, we've got a situation. The Vril are inside the outer perimeter. We need to move you to a secure location." Greg shook his head. "We can't leave. We're on the verge of a breakthrough. This code, it could be the key to humanity's evolution." Reynolds frowned, but before he could argue, the facility rocked with a massive explosion. The lights flickered and dust rained from the ceiling. "They're here!" Reynolds growled, raising his pulse rifle. "Get down!" As Greg and his team took cover, the far wall exploded inward. Through the smoke and debris, they saw the silhouettes of Vril commandos, their alien forms wreathed in crackling energy fields. At their head stood Sack, Zark's lieutenant. His voice, a guttural rasp, filled the room. "Surrender the artifact, humans. Your pitiful defenses cannot stop us." Reynolds and his team opened fire, their bullets sparking off the Vril's energy shields. The aliens returned fire, their weapons scorching the air with superheated plasma. Amidst the chaos, Greg worked furiously at his console. The code pulsed before him, its secrets tantalizingly close. As Reynolds and his men fought a desperate holding action, Greg felt something change within him. The world seemed to slow down. He could see the trajectories of the energy blasts, feel the vibrations of the battle in the air around him. The code wasn't just affecting technology, it was changing him on a fundamental level. With a surge of newfound clarity, Greg's fingers flew across the interface. He could see the connections, the underlying structure of reality itself. As he input the final sequence, the air around him began to shimmer. The Vril commandos faltered, their weapons sputtering and dying. Sack roared in frustration, charging towards Greg with inhuman speed. Time seemed to stretch. Greg raised his hand, feeling a surge of power course through him. The air between him and Sack rippled, and the Vril lieutenant stumbled as if hitting an invisible wall. As the failsafe mechanism expanded its influence, Greg felt his consciousness expanding with it. He could sense the battle raging in orbit, feel the fear and tenacity of billions of humans fighting for survival. The code pulsed one final time, and a wave of energy erupted from the facility. Greg watched in awe as it spread across the planet, a ripple of change washing over humanity. In orbit, Vril ships began to fall from the sky, their advanced technology rendered useless. The combined human and Ocampa forces pressed their advantage, turning the tide of the battle. But the true transformation was just beginning. Across the globe, humans began to experience strange new abilities. Telepathic connections formed, objects moved with the power of thought, and the very fabric of reality seemed to bend to human will. As the wave of change swept over the planet, Greg realized that this was only the beginning. Humanity had taken its first steps into a new era, one filled with incredible potential and unknown dangers. The battle for Earth was nowhere near the end. But for the first time since the crisis began, Greg felt a glimmer of hope. Whatever challenges lay ahead, humanity would face them with newfound strength and unity. As Sack and his commandos retreated, their mission in tatters, Greg turned to his team. The look of wonder on their faces mirrored his own. They had unlocked something far greater than they had ever imagined, and the true impact of their discovery was only just beginning to unfold. Greg's mind raced as the implications of his discovery unfolded before him. The precursor code pulsed on the screen, its intricate patterns revealing a truth far beyond what they had initially imagined. This wasn't just about disrupting technology or defending against alien invaders. It was the key to unlocking humanity's hidden potential. "Dr. Tucker!" Captain Reynolds' voice cut through Greg's thoughts. "We need to move now!" The wall to their left exploded in a shower of debris and sparks. Through the smoke, the menacing silhouettes of Vril commandos emerged, their energy weapons primed and humming with deadly power. Greg's fingers flew across the holographic interface, inputting commands at a frenzied pace. "Just a few more seconds," he shouted over the chaos of gunfire and explosions. Reynolds and his team formed a protective ring around Greg, their pulse rifles spitting streams of high-velocity rounds at the advancing Vril. "Whatever you're doing, do it fast!" Reynolds yelled as he ducked behind an overturned desk. With a final keystroke, Greg activated the full power of the precursor code, targeting himself as the primary subject. The effect was immediate and overwhelming. A wave of energy coursed through his body, every nerve ending igniting with white-hot intensity. Greg screamed, his body convulsing as the code rewrote his very DNA. The air around him shimmered and crackled with unseen forces. Reynolds watched in awe and horror as Greg's form began to change, his muscles rippling and expanding beneath his lab coat. "Hold the line," Reynolds ordered his team. "Give him time." The Vril pressed their attack, their energy blasts scorching the air and melting equipment into slag. Dr. Wei and Dr. Schmidt huddled behind their workstations, frantically trying to salvage data from their computers. As Greg's transformation neared its peak, his mind expanded beyond the confines of his skull. He could sense the ebb and flow of gravitational fields, the dance of electrons in the air around him. With a thought, he reached out and grasped these fundamental forces. The lead Vril commando, mere steps away from Greg, suddenly found himself lifted off his feet. He hung suspended in midair, trapped in a localized gravitational field of Greg's creation. The alien's weapon fell from his grasp, clattering uselessly to the floor. Greg stood, his eyes blazing with newfound power. He raised his hand, and 3 more Vril soldiers were flung backwards, crashing into the far wall with bone-crushing force. Reynolds stared at Greg in disbelief. "Dr. Tucker, what did you do?" "I unlocked our potential, Captain," Greg replied, his voice resonating with a new depth of authority. "And I think it's time we took the fight to them." Outside the facility, the battle raged on. The sky was alight with the flashes of energy weapons and explosions as Earth's combined forces clashed with the Vril fleet. General Hawthorne's voice crackled over the comm system, his tone grim. "All units, be advised. Vril forces have begun planetary landings. I repeat, we have multiple Vril ground incursions." Reynolds made a split-second decision. "Dr. Tucker, if you can do what I think you can do, we need to get you to the nearest Vril landing site. We might be able to turn this around." Greg nodded, his enhanced mind already calculating the most efficient route. "Lead the way, Captain." As they prepared to leave, Dr. Wei called out, "Greg, wait! We need to try to replicate your transformation. It could be our only chance to even the odds." "Do what you can," Greg replied, tossing Wei a data crystal. "But be careful. The process is intense." Reynolds led his team and Greg out of the facility and into the harsh Australian outback. The night sky was ablaze with the lights of battle, distant explosions sending tremors through the earth beneath their feet. As they moved, Greg's senses continued to expand. He could feel the electromagnetic pulses of Vril communication systems, the energy signatures of their advanced weaponry. With a thought, he reached out and disrupted a nearby Vril patrol systems, causing their energy rifles to sputter and die. Incredible, Reynolds muttered as his team easily subdued the now defenseless Vril soldiers. Their progress didn't go unnoticed. High above the Earth, Commander Zark observed the unexpected turn of events with growing alarm. All units, he snarled into his ship's communication system, converge on Sector 7G. Eliminate the human anomaly at all costs. As Greg and Reynolds' team approached the main Vril landing site, the resistance grew fiercer. Vril dropships screamed overhead, disgorging waves of alien soldiers. Energy blasts lit up the night, forcing the humans to take cover behind rock formations. Greg stepped forward, raising his hands. The air in front of him shimmered as he created a barrier of warped spacetime, deflecting the Vril attacks. "Keep moving," he shouted to Reynolds. "I'll hold them off." But as they neared their objective, a new threat emerged. A sleek, black shuttle touched down in front of them, its hull gleaming with an otherworldly sheen. The boarding ramp lowered, revealing a towering figure flanked by a squad of Vril warriors, unlike any they had seen before. "Sack," Reynolds breathed, recognizing the Vril lieutenant from intelligence briefings. Sack's cybernetically enhanced body pulsed with energy. His voice, a grating metallic rasp, cut through the sounds of battle. "So, this is the human who dares to wield the power of the precursors." Greg stepped forward, power crackling at his fingertips. "This ends now, Sack. Earth is not yours to take." Sack's lipless mouth curved into a cruel smile. "On the contrary, human, it is you who have reached your end." With blinding speed, Sack and his elite warriors charged forward. Greg braced himself, calling upon his newfound powers as the two forces collided in a spectacular display of advanced alien technology versus awakened human potential. The fate of Earth hung in the balance as the battle unfolded, with both sides acutely aware that the outcome of this confrontation would shape the future of not just one planet, but potentially the entire galaxy. The air crackled with energy as Greg and Sack faced off, their eyes locked in a battle of wills. Greg's newly awakened powers surged through him, every cell in his body humming with potential. Sack's cybernetic enhancements pulsed with an eerie blue glow, his metallic frame poised for combat. Without warning, Sack launched himself forward, his augmented limbs propelling him at inhuman speed. Greg reacted instinctively, reaching out with his mind to manipulate the gravitational field around him. Sack's charge suddenly slowed, his movements becoming sluggish as if moving through thick syrup. Taking advantage of the moment, Greg thrust his hand forward, sending a concentrated burst of electromagnetic energy towards the Vril lieutenant. Sack's energy shield flared to life, absorbing the attack but flickering dangerously. Captain Reynolds and his team engaged the remaining Vril forces, their pulse rifles spitting streams of high-velocity rounds. "Keep them off Tucker," Reynolds shouted, diving behind a twisted piece of alien wreckage for cover. As the battle raged, Greg felt his powers evolving, adapting to the challenges before him. A Vril energy blast screamed towards him, and instinctively he raised his hands. Instead of deflecting the attack, he felt the energy flow into him, coursing through his body before redirecting it back at the stunned alien soldier. Sack snarled, his voice a harsh mechanical rasp. "Your tricks won't save you, human. We have conquered countless worlds. Earth will be no different." Greg stood his ground, feeling the raw power of the universe at his fingertips. "You're wrong, Sack. Humanity is evolving. We're not the same species you thought you could easily subjugate." As they clashed again, the very earth beneath their feet trembled. Greg's gravity manipulation caused boulders to lift and hurl themselves at Sack, while the Vril lieutenant countered with blasts from his arm-mounted energy cannons. The Australian outback became a war zone, the landscape forever altered by their titanic struggle. Miles away in the relative safety of the research facility, Dr. Wei and Dr. Schmidt worked feverishly to replicate Greg's transformation. Banks of computers hummed as they processed the complex algorithms of the precursor code. "I think we've got it," Dr. Schmidt exclaimed, his fingers flying across the holographic interface. We've managed to stabilize the transformation process. Dr. Wei nodded, sweat beading on his forehead. Initiate the procedure. We don't have much time. In a secure chamber, a group of volunteers, a mix of soldiers and scientists, braced themselves as waves of energy washed over them. Their bodies contorted, muscles expanding, minds opening to new possibilities. Within minutes, a squad of enhanced humans stood ready, their eyes gleaming with newfound power. Back at the battlefield, Greg found himself surrounded by SAC's elite warriors. Their coordinated attacks pushed him to his limits, forcing him to constantly adapt and evolve his abilities. As he deflected an energy blast, Greg suddenly felt a new awareness bloom in his mind, a deeper connection to the fundamental forces of the universe. Time seemed to slow as his perception expanded. Greg could see the flow of electrons, the dance of quantum particles, the very fabric of space-time bending around him. With this new insight, he began to anticipate the Vril attacks, moving with preternatural speed and precision. In orbit, the space battle took a dramatic turn. General Hawthorne's voice crackled over the comms. All units, prepare for Operation Blackout. T-minus 30 seconds. Xander, leading a squadron of Ocampa fighters, acknowledged the order. Understood, General. We're in position. As the countdown reached 0, Earth's satellite network came to life, broadcasting a modified version of the precursor code. The effect on the Vril fleet was immediate and devastating. Alien ships began to drift, their systems failing as the disruptive signal penetrated their defenses. Xander seized the opportunity, leading a daring assault on Commander Zark's flagship. All wings, form up on me. Target their primary power conduits. The Ocampa ships weaved through the chaos, their superior maneuverability allowing them to evade the sporadic Vril defenses. Precision strikes crippled the flagship's shields, leaving it vulnerable. On the bridge of his ship, Commander Zark watched in disbelief as his invasion force crumbled. Impossible! He hissed, his alien features contorted in rage. Deploy the Worldbreaker! We will not be defeated by these primitives! A massive bay opened in the underbelly of the flagship, revealing a sleek, ominous device. With a burst of energy, the doomsday weapon launched, streaking towards the Earth's surface. Greg, locked in combat with SAC, sensed the approaching threat. He disengaged from the fight, using his gravity manipulation to launch himself skyward. Reynolds, he shouted, hold them off! I have to stop that thing! As Greg ascended, he reached out with his mind, grasping the plummeting device with invisible forces. The strain was immense, every fiber of his being screaming in protest as he fought to slow its descent. Sweat poured down his face, muscles trembling with exertion. SAC, seeing his chance, ordered his remaining forces to converge on Greg's position. Destroy him! Do not let him interfere! Captain Reynolds and his team quickly formed a defensive perimeter around Greg. Like hell you will, Reynolds growled, opening fire on the advancing Vril. Doc, whatever you're doing, do it fast! Greg, suspended in midair, grappled with the alien weapon. As he touched its surface, he felt a connection forming, the precursor code within him resonating with the device's technology. With growing excitement, he realized he could interface with its systems. Time was running out. The Doomsday device continued its inexorable descent, despite Greg's efforts to halt it. Making a split-second decision, he dove deeper into the alien code, attempting to rewrite its core programming. The battle raged around him, pulse rifle fire mixing with Vril energy blasts, the sky ablaze with the remnants of the space battle. Greg tuned it all out, his entire being focused on the intricate dance of alien algorithms before him. As he worked, Greg felt his consciousness expanding further, touching the very edges of reality. Visions of distant worlds, ancient civilizations, and cosmic truths flashed through his mind. He saw the Vril for what they truly were, not just conquerors, but a species driven by fear of their own mortality. With this newfound understanding, Greg redoubled his efforts. His fingers danced across the device's surface, rewriting its purpose at the most fundamental level. No longer a tool of destruction, he aimed to turn it into a beacon of transformation. The air crackled with tension as Greg neared completion of his task. The fate of Earth, and perhaps the entire galaxy, hung in the balance. As he input the final command sequence, a blinding light erupted from the device, enveloping everything in its radiance. For a moment, all combat ceased as human and Vril alike shielded their eyes from the intense glow. When the light faded, the doomsday device hung suspended in the air, pulsing with a new benign energy. Greg, his body racked with exhaustion, slowly descended to the ground. He looked up at his creation, a faint smile playing on his lips. The true test was yet to come, but for the first time since the invasion began, he felt a glimmer of hope for a future beyond mere survival. As the transformed device began to emit waves of energy across the battlefield, both humans and Vril watched in anticipation, unsure of what this new development would bring to their conflict. The war for Earth had entered a new phase, with consequences that would ripple across the cosmos. Cosmos. The pulsing energy from the repurposed device washed over the battlefield in waves, each surge more potent than the last. Greg, suspended in midair, his body racked with exhaustion, felt the full force of his efforts taking their toll. A trickle of blood ran from his nose as he strained to maintain his connection with the alien technology. His muscles spasmed, threatening to break his concentration. Yet he persevered, diving deeper into the intricate web of precursor code that now flowed through both his mind and the device. On the ground, Captain Reynolds and his team formed a protective ring around Greg's position. The air crackled with energy as Vril weaponry clashed with human pulse rifles. Reynolds, his face streaked with dirt and sweat, shouted orders over the din of battle. "Hold the line! We can't let them reach Tucker!" Sack, the Vril lieutenant, his cybernetic body gleaming in the harsh light of the Australian outback, led a relentless charge against the human defenders. His metallic voice cut through the chaos. "Destroy the anomaly! The device must not be compromised!" Reynolds gritted his teeth, watching as Sack's enhanced form tore through their defenses with terrifying efficiency. The captain's mind raced, analyzing the battlefield, seeking any advantage. He spotted a formation of rocks to their left, perfect for an ambush. "Johnson, Martinez, flank left and lay down suppressing fire," Reynolds barked, directing his soldiers with practiced precision. The maneuver caught several Vril warriors off guard, buying the humans precious seconds. High above the Earth's surface, the space battle reached a fever pitch. General Hawthorne's voice crackled over the comms. "All units, the modified precursor code is working. Push the advantage." Xander, piloting his Ocampa fighter with fluid grace, led a daring assault on Commander Zark's flagship. The massive Vril vessel, once an impenetrable fortress, now sputtered and lurched as its systems failed under the onslaught of the human countermeasure. "Talon Squadron, form up on me," Xander commanded, his voice steady despite the chaos surrounding him. "Target their primary shield generators. Let's crack this egg open." The sleek Ocampa ships weaved through the debris of disabled Vril craft, their energy weapons carving precise holes in the flagship's defenses. Explosions blossomed across the hull as human pilots, emboldened by their alien allies, joined the assault. Back on Earth, the tide of battle shifted dramatically, with the arrival of Major Sarah Connor and her squad of enhanced humans. They moved with preternatural speed and strength, their abilities a testament to the groundbreaking work of Dr. Way and Dr. Schmidt. Connor, her eyes gleaming with newfound power, assessed the situation in an instant. "Alpha Team, engage the Vril on the eastern flank. Beta Team, with me. We're going to relieve Captain Reynolds." The enhanced soldiers sprang into action, their movements a blur to the naked eye. Vril energy weapons met their mark only to find their targets had already moved, counterattacking with devastating efficiency. For the first time since the invasion began, the alien forces found themselves truly outmatched. Greg, still locked in his mental struggle with the doomsday device, felt a surge of triumph as the last pieces of code fell into place. The device's purpose shifted, its destructive potential redirected into a force of disruption aimed squarely at Vril technology. A blinding pulse erupted from the device, expanding outward in concentric rings. As it washed over the battlefield, Vril weapons sputtered and died. Their advanced vehicles ground to a halt, alien alloys rendered inert by the reprogrammed energy. Sack, caught in mid-leap by the pulse, suddenly found his cybernetic enhancements failing. His metallic limbs, once a source of overwhelming power, now hung limp and useless. The Vril lieutenant crashed to the ground, his fearsome presence reduced to that of a crippled machine. Reynolds, seizing the moment, charged forward. His fist connected with Sack's jaw in a satisfying crunch of bone and metal. The Vril commander slumped, unconscious, as human soldiers quickly moved to secure him. The effects of Greg's repurposed device reached far beyond the immediate battlefield. Reports flooded in from around the globe of Vril forces in disarray, their technological advantage erased in an instant. Humanity, bolstered by their Ocampa allies, pressed the attack on all fronts. In orbit, the Pulse reached Commander Zark's flagship just as Xander and his boarding party breached the hull. Artificial gravity failed, plunging the ship's corridors into chaos. Vril and human alike found themselves floating, the battlefield transformed into a three-dimensional nightmare. Xander, trained in zero-G combat, used the walls to propel himself forward. His team followed, pushing through disoriented Vril defenders. They fought their way to the bridge, where Zark awaited, his alien features twisted in a snarl of defiance. As the two leaders faced off, the fate of the entire invasion hung in the balance. Greg, his incredible feat accomplished, felt his grip on consciousness slipping. His body, pushed beyond its limits, began to shut down. As he fell from the sky, his mind exploded with visions of impossible clarity. He saw vast precursor cities, gleaming structures that defied the laws of physics. Glimpses of potential futures flickered through his mind. Humanity reaching for the stars, unlocking secrets of the universe, evolving into something greater. And beneath it all, a sense of even greater powers waiting to be discovered, hidden within the code that now coursed through his veins. Major Connor's enhanced squad moved with lightning speed to catch Greg's falling form. They secured the area around the repurposed device, establishing a defensive perimeter against any potential counterattack. "Medical team, we need immediate evac," Connor shouted into her comm unit. "Tucker is down. I repeat, Tucker is down." As Greg was rushed to a waiting medical transport, Dr. Way and Dr. Schmidt arrived on the scene. Their eyes widened at the sight of the transformed doomsday device, minds already racing with the possibilities it presented. "Incredible," Dr. Way breathed, his instruments scanning the pulsing energy field. "The implications of this technology, it could change everything." Dr. Schmidt nodded, his face a mixture of excitement and concern. "We need to study the long-term effects on human physiology and the geopolitical ramifications. This is just the beginning." As news of the turning tide spread, celebrations erupted in cities across the globe. Humanity dared to hope that victory was within reach. Yet as the immediate threat receded, new questions arose. What would Earth's place be in this newly revealed galactic community? How would the precursor code reshape human society? In a secure medical facility, Greg lay unconscious, his vital signs weak but stable. Monitors beeped steadily, tracking the unprecedented changes occurring within his body. Captain Reynolds stood vigil, his face etched with concern for his friend and anticipation for what the future might hold. Outside, Major Connor coordinated with General Hawthorne, consolidating their hold on the hard-won ground. The war wasn't over, but for the first time, the end was in sight. As dawn broke over the horizon, humanity stood on the threshold of a new era, its destiny among the stars finally within reach. Greg's eyes fluttered open, the stark, white ceiling of the medical facility slowly coming into focus. He blinked, adjusting to the harsh fluorescent lights. The steady beep of monitors filled the air, a rhythmic reminder of his vital signs. "Welcome back, Doc," a familiar voice said. Greg turned his head, wincing at the stiffness in his neck. Captain Reynolds stood beside the bed, his usual stoic expression softened by a hint of relief. "Jack," Greg croaked, his throat dry. "How long was I out?" Reynolds handed him a glass of water. 3 days. You gave us quite a scare. As Greg sipped the cool liquid, flashes of memory surged through his mind. The doomsday device, the alien code, the blinding light. He gasped, nearly choking on the water. The device, did it work? The vril... Easy, easy, Reynolds said, gently pushing Greg back onto the pillow. It worked. Better than we could have hoped. The vril tech is down across the globe. We're pushing them back on all fronts. Greg let out a shaky breath, relief washing over him. But before he could relax, a new wave of images flooded his consciousness. Vast alien cities, glimpses of potential futures, and an overwhelming sense of impending conflict. Jack, he said, gripping the captain's arm, there's more. So much more. We need to... A knock at the door interrupted him. Dr. Wei and Dr. Schmidt entered, their faces a mix of excitement and concern. Dr. Tucker, Wei said, approaching the bed, it's good to see you awake. How are you feeling? Greg shook his head, trying to clear the lingering visions. I'm fine, but we don't have time for pleasantries. The device, the precursor code, it's changing things. Changing us. Schmidt nodded, his eyes gleaming with scientific curiosity. We've detected widespread physiological changes in the population, enhanced cognitive abilities, improved physical attributes. It's unprecedented. And that's just the beginning, Greg said, struggling to sit up. There are other races out there, threats we can't even imagine. We need to prepare. Reynolds exchanged a look with the scientists. We've already started. General Hawthorne is establishing a new global defense network. And there's more. Over the next hour, they briefed Greg on the rapidly evolving situation, the capture of the Vril flagship, the formation of the International Task Force, the Mars Base Initiative. With each revelation, Greg's sense of urgency grew. We need to move faster, he insisted. The visions I've seen, there's a storm coming, a galactic conflict that could engulf us all. As if on cue, the door burst open. Major Sarah Connor strode in, her enhanced physique radiating almost unchecked energy. Tucker, good to see you vertical, she said brusquely. We need you in the war room. The Vril commander, Zark, is talking. What he's saying, it changes everything. Greg swung his legs off the bed, ignoring the protests of the medical staff. Let's go. The group made their way through the facility's winding corridors, Greg leaning on Reynolds for support. They entered a high-security conference room where General Hawthorne and a holographic projection of Xander awaited. Dr. Tucker, Hawthorne nodded. Glad you could join us. We're at a crossroads, and your input is crucial. Over the next several hours, they pored over the intelligence gleaned from Zark's interrogation. Star charts flickered across holographic displays, revealing the complex web of galactic politics and the locations of other advanced civilizations. This changes our entire strategic outlook, Hawthorne mused, stroking his chin. We're not just defending Earth anymore. We're stepping onto a galactic stage. Xander's hologram nodded, which is why the Ocampa propose a formal alliance with Earth. Together, we stand a better chance of navigating these treacherous waters. Greg listened intently, his mind racing. The visions he'd experienced were starting to align with the information before them. As the others debated strategy and resource allocation, a plan began to form in his mind. We need to be proactive, he said, silencing the room. There are precursor artifacts out there, waiting to be discovered. If we can secure them before other races do, it could tip the balance in our favor. Hawthorne leaned forward, intrigued. What are you proposing, Doctor? An expedition, Greg replied, his eyes gleaming with commitment, to a nearby star system. Joint human Ocampa crew. We find those artifacts, unlock their secrets, and give humanity a fighting chance. The room erupted in discussion. As the implications of Greg's proposal sank in, a sense of excitement began to build. This was more than a defensive measure. It was humanity's first step into a larger universe. Weeks passed in a blur of preparation. Earth's scientific community, galvanized by the influx of alien technology and the spreading effects of the precursor code made unprecedented breakthroughs in propulsion systems and spacecraft design. Greg watched from the observation deck as the sleek form of the Phoenix took shape in orbit. Earth's first interstellar vessel represented the culmination of human ingenuity and alien knowledge, a symbol of hope for the future. As the day of launch approached, Greg found himself in a quiet moment with Reynolds, now Colonel Reynolds, overlooking the bustling spaceport. "You sure about this, Doc?" Reynolds asked, his voice tinged with concern. "It's one thing to fight off an invasion. Heading out into the unknown, that's another ballgame entirely." Greg nodded, his gaze fixed on the stars above. "We don't have a choice, Jack. What's out there? It's coming for us whether we're ready or not. Better to meet it on our terms." Reynolds clapped him on the shoulder. "Well, someone's got to keep you out of trouble up there. Guess I'll have to put Mars on hold for a bit." Greg turned, surprised. "You're coming?" "Wouldn't miss it for the world," Reynolds grinned. "Or should I say, for the galaxy." As they shared a laugh, Greg felt a mix of excitement and trepidation wash over him. The path ahead was uncertain, fraught with danger and possibility in equal measure. But as he looked at the grit in his friend's eyes and thought of the crew waiting to embark on this historic journey, he knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. The next morning, as the Phoenix prepared for launch, Greg stood on the bridge, surrounded by a mix of human and Ocampa crew members. He took a deep breath, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. "All systems go," the ship's AI announced. "Awaiting your command, Dr. Tucker." Greg exchanged a nod with Reynolds, then looked out at the vast expanse of space before them. With a mixture of anticipation and commitment, he gave the order that would carry humanity into a new era. "Engage!" "Era." Greg took a deep breath and gave the command. "Engage FTL drive. Take us beyond." The Phoenix's engines thrummed to life, a deep vibration coursing through the ship. Outside the viewports, space itself seemed to bend and warp. In a flash of otherworldly light, the vessel vanished from Earth's orbit, plunging into the vast unknown. Days turned to weeks, then months as the Phoenix traversed the mind-boggling distances between stars. The crew settled into their roles, a mix of anticipation and nervous energy permeating the ship. Greg spent countless hours in the ship's laboratory, working alongside Dr. Wei to further unravel the mysteries of the precursor code. His enhanced mind raced with possibilities, connecting patterns and solving equations at an unprecedented rate. "It's like having the universe whispering its secrets directly into my brain," Greg explained to Reynolds one evening in the ship's mess hall. "The more I understand, the more I realize how much is still beyond our grasp." Reynolds nodded, his eyes betraying a hint of concern. "Just don't lose yourself in all that cosmic knowledge, Doc. We need you grounded when we reach our destination." As they neared the target system, activity on the ship intensified. Sensors probed the alien star and its orbiting bodies, searching for signs of precursor activity. It was Xander who first spotted it, a massive structure on the third planet's surface, its geometry too precise to be natural. "By the galactic core," Xander breathed, his compound eyes wide with awe. "It's just as the legends described." The Phoenix entered orbit, and Greg led the first landing party to the surface. As their shuttle descended through wispy clouds, the true scale of the structure became apparent. It dwarfed anything built by human or vril hands, a sprawling complex of intersecting shapes that seemed to defy conventional architecture. Greg's enhanced senses tingled as they approached on foot. "There's energy here," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "It's faint, but it's everywhere." Dr. Wei's instruments confirmed Greg's intuition. "These readings are off the charts. Whatever this place is, it's still active after countless millennia." Using his connection to the precursor code, Greg navigated the team through a series of hidden entrances. The air inside was stale but breathable, preserved by ancient systems beyond their comprehension. They passed through cavernous halls adorned with symbols, reminiscent of the Australian cave paintings, only far more complex. Greg's mind raced to decipher them, each new insight unlocking further mysteries. Deep within the heart of the complex, they discovered a chamber that took their breath away. A colossal device dominated the space, its surface covered in pulsing lights and intricate patterns. "It's a computer," Greg realized, approaching the device, "but on a scale we've never imagined." As if responding to his presence, the machine hummed to life. A beam of light shot forth, coalescing into the holographic image of a being unlike any they had encountered. Its form was fluid, constantly shifting between abstract shapes and vaguely humanoid outlines. "Greetings, Seekers," the hologram spoke, its voice resonating in their minds rather than their ears. "You have found this nexus point, one of many scattered throughout the galaxy. We are the echo of those you call precursors, left to guide and prepare." The hologram explained the true purpose of the nexus points: testing grounds for emerging species, preparing them for a greater role in the cosmic order. The cave paintings on Earth were merely the first step, a primer for the vast knowledge contained within these facilities. Over the next weeks, Greg and his team worked tirelessly to decipher the repository of knowledge. They uncovered secrets that reshaped their understanding of reality itself: the manipulation of space-time, the harnessing of stellar energy, even the creation and destruction of matter at will. But with this knowledge came a chilling warning. The hologram spoke of the Devourers, a highly advanced species consumed by an insatiable hunger for life and technology. The precursors had foreseen this threat, creating the nexus points to prepare younger races to stand against it. Greg's mind reeled with the implications. He knew what had to be done. Using his enhanced abilities, further amplified by the nexus point, Greg initiated a galaxy-wide activation of all dormant precursor technology. The energy surge was staggering, rippling across the cosmos in waves of invisible power. Back on the Phoenix, Reynolds watched in awe as his console lit up with incoming signals. "My God," he breathed. "It's happening everywhere. Hundreds, thousands of worlds. They're all waking up." On Earth, the effect was nothing short of revolutionary. Millions found themselves manifesting abilities similar to Greg's, though to varying degrees. Anti-gravity vehicles filled the skies of every major city. Matter replicators appeared in homes and public spaces, solving resource scarcity overnight. As news of the Devourer threat reached Earth, humanity rallied with a unity never before seen in its history. The planet transformed into a buzzing hive of advanced technology and shared purpose. Greg returned to a hero's welcome, bringing with him the knowledge and technology needed to prepare for the coming conflict. He stood before the United Earth Council, his presence commanding even among the newly enhanced populace. "We stand at a crossroads," Greg addressed the assembly, his voice carried to billions across the planet and beyond. "The threat we face is dire, but we do not stand alone. Across the galaxy, other species have awakened to their potential. Together, we will form a coalition unlike any the universe has seen." In the following months, a massive space fleet took shape in Earth's orbit. Ships overflowing with precursor-derived technology capable of bending the very laws of physics stood ready to defend not just humanity, but all life in the galaxy. Greg found himself on the bridge of the flagship, christened Prometheus. As they prepared to lead the coalition fleet into position, he couldn't help but reflect on the journey that had brought them here. From cave paintings to cosmic defenders, humanity had evolved beyond its wildest dreams. Long-range sensors lit up, detecting the first wave of Devourer ships approaching the outer reaches of the solar system. Greg squared his shoulders, his enhanced mind already formulating strategies and contingencies. "All ships, this is Admiral Tucker," he announced, his voice steady and resolute. "Prepare to engage. The future of the galaxy depends on what we do here today." As the Prometheus surged forward, leading Earth's fleet to meet the oncoming threat, Greg knew that this was but the beginning of humanity's greatest adventure. The cave paintings that had once puzzled archaeologists had led them to this moment, transforming from enigmatic artwork into the key that unlocked their species' true potential. The battle for the future of the galaxy loomed before them, but Greg felt no fear. Humanity had found its place among the stars, and whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them united, enhanced, and unbowed.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.